Hey vinyl community, Martin here. I've tried a couple of times to launch threads, unsuccessful. Well, thank you to those who actually did try to follow up on my threads. Is this a thread? Can it be a thread? Am I using all the records possible for this thread? Maybe. I don't know. But it would be cool if some of you would try and follow up on this. So, from what you probably read as the title of this video, self-titled albums that are not debut albums. For some reason, some bands launch into their careers and they have, you know, titles that are absolutely fantastic or short, 10. And then for some reason, after a while, they think, so what are we going to call the next album then? Well, this time you guys wrote a lot of the song lyrics and stuff, so I'm not really interested. And they end up naming the album after their band far into their careers often. Why? Well, good question, bad question, I don't know. But let's look at some self-titled albums that are not debut albums. I think I'll start with a couple of CDs. This one is probably, yeah, even now that I got that Theory Corporation vinyl and a few others, this still is one of the grails de résistance, or whales as I prefer to call them. This is, of course, the record Alice in Chains. Now, most folks these days call this tripod, and it's one that I really had hoped would have maybe surfaced this year. There were some rumors, I suppose, some record store day possibility, but yeah, we haven't seen it, and I would hope we do soon. Next up is this one by Interpol, just called Interpol. And they had some fine, album names up to that point, which was in, all the way back to 2010. They suddenly sprung a self-titled album on us. Next up, I could have gotten this one on a vinyl. I have this super deluxe box set, but then I remember all those vinyls are actually picture discs. So here's the CD of the self-titled album from Supergrass. And yeah, they'd been around for a few years by this time, and another band who had been around for a while, just like Alice in Chains, and belonged to the same genre, whether or not they asked to, and are sometimes called, one of those Seattle grunge bands. They were not from Seattle actually at all. They were from the opposite side of that coastline, from San Diego, and that was Stone Temple Pilots, who, when they reunited with the whole band and Scott and everything, and they gave us this album simply called Stone Temple Pilots. And well, we unfortunately know what happened after that one. And now for some vinyl records, self-titled but not debuts. These guys waited until their 5th album, and then they released a self-titled album called Metallica, leaving us to rename it the Black Album. And I suppose ultimately that's the Beatles' fault, all these colored band album names. The next band decided to name their debut album after the band. So why are they here? Well, then they followed up with a second album, which had a proper name. But then they followed that up after a bit of a break with the third album, again named after the band, which they have kept doing, forcing us to, name their albums after various colors. So this is Weezer and their well, green album. And since then, I suppose we've had a red one and we had a black one. Well, we've had sort of two black ones, but one of the black ones actually had an album title. And then we had, we've had a teal one and we had a white one, didn't we? And, thrown in around, interspersed, there are albums with actual album names. But this was their first non-debut self-titled album after they've had a self-titled debut album. So the next one, I guess, well, is this eighth solo album from this artist. Although someone would maybe call it number 6. And this is the self-titled album from George Harrison. After, a couple of fairly disastrous records, he got a new sort of an injection of vitamin when he switched from the whole Apple thing was over and switched to Warner, started up his own Dark Horse label and released the wonderful 33 1/3. And then he decided just to name the next album after himself, which is an equally great album. And I think this is a wonderful album, but simply called George Harrison. Here's another album by a wonderful band who, after several albums, decided to record and release an album and just call it after themselves before they, at least for the time being, called it quits, forcing us once again to choose a color for them to, and since there are no three-legged animals on the cover. So this is the Grey album, or rather this is Echo and the Bunnymen. Not a wonderful album. Unfortunately, things soured during the making of this, and Ian called it quits, and they, as you saw in one of my Stockholm videos, recorded a new album as Echo and the Bunnymen with a new singer, and that was the end. Although that end didn't last terribly wrong, because Will and Ian did get back together and make another album, and then decided that the next project they made, they renamed themselves Echo and the Bunnymen again. 2 more to go, and this is one of my absolute favorite bands from the 90s, which will be followed up by my favorite band from the 90s, but again, they were around for a while, recorded, 1, 2, 3, 4... Yeah, so this would be the 5th album where they suddenly decide, no, this is just Blur. And this was a fairly... this was a leap of sound and attitude from their previous 2, especially. I guess their 2 first were more in the shoegaze sort of world, but with Beetlebum and Song 2, MOR. I love this song, Look Inside America. Yeah, they decided to go a different way, and they decided just to call the album Blur. And finally, this is the self-titled album from my favorite 1990s band, and one of my at least top 5 bands ever since. This was when I felt that I discovered the musical genre and a band sort of that were my own. When I was closing in on 20, I was doing my military service at the time, and this was one of 3 albums that I had in my room that I listened to a lot. This band was not this album because it came much later. And they switched record label. They were done with Epic Records, and that probably tells you who this is. This is Pearl Jam by Pearl Jam, and of course it ended up being called Avocado. Great album. They are in great sort of mid-career form, I guess. Not that many years ago, we would have maybe called this later career form, but yeah, this is a while ago now, of course. But yeah, I remember it really did get a second leaf of life for me when it came on, when I got the vinyl after. I don't know, maybe not treating the CD to the kind of attention it should have had. So, yeah, Pearl Jam suddenly showing up with a self-titled album. Wondering what, if anything, the next album will be after Cameron leaving the band and all that. But, yeah, they're starting to have a bit of a Spinal Tap drummer story going on now, although, you know, Matt did last a long time. But, yeah, love Pearl Jam, love them dearly, and that was the last one in my self-titled, but not debut, album. Thread? So guys, if you have any suggestions to albums like this, unless of course I've taken them all away, please make a video. If you choose to you know, this is not a competition, so if you choose to show the same records or some of them, I don't mind. I just like maybe having inspired some of you to make a video, and absolutely leave a comment. I need reading material now that I'm going away on the health retreat tomorrow morning, and yeah. So anyway, guys, you know who you are. Vinyl community, all that. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you guys soon in another video. Bye-bye.